Okay, everyone. Hello, my name is Jim Frankel, Dr. Jim Frankel. If you're a student, that's what I made my students always call me. I am the proud founder and director of MusicFirst, and one of our amazing partners is Rising Software. Rising Software are the creators of the world's best ear training and music theory software. Hopefully, you've been using it with your teachers. That's called Aurelia and Musician. Before I introduce our great guest host this evening, Tim Wilson from Rising Software, I just wanted to give you a little bit of encouragement for your upcoming AP Music Theory exams. As somebody who went through that process myself, I know that music theory is one of those subjects that might give you a little cause for maybe a little bit, tiny bit of fear about anybody taking an AP exam, and worrying about getting the best grade possible. We are here to help you. And tonight, our good friend Tim Wilson from Rising Software is going to focus on a specific aspect of the AP Music Theory exam, which we think is probably the one that you're the most worried about, which is the kind of the free form or long answer, where it's not just you filling in a bubble, but instead you actually having to explain and maybe even write things out. So again, from all of us at MusicFirst, we wish you the best on your AP theory exams, and I leave you in the very capable and fantastic hands of my good friend Tim Wilson. Tim, let's please try to ease these students' fears and get them ready for their upcoming exams. Kids, good luck. Have a great rest of school year. I leave you with Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Jim, and welcome, everyone. Great to have you all here today. Here at Aurelia Musician, we get to work with schools and universities and curriculum boards all around the world. And as Jim alluded to, it's fair to say that the AP Music Theory exam is one of the more kind of rigorous ones we see at the upper end of high school. Lots of challenges in terms of the sheer amount of content and the depth of knowledge required to kind of fulfill it and tackle the exam itself. So we have a mixture of teachers and students joining us today. And no doubt for the students, some of the things we'll be discussing will echo many of the things that you have been working on with your teachers throughout the year. Hopefully you've been working on building lots of foundational skills, all those little building blocks, so you can put it all together on exam day. It's our hope that we might be able to offer a few tips and tricks and strategies that you can also apply today as we unpack a few of the free response questions from the 2023 AP Music Theory exam. So I will get my share going. Now, this won't be news to any of you, but my not so secret tip number one, which I'm sure we've all been, thinking about and focusing on throughout the year. Number one tip for any kind of ear training work is sing, sing, sing. Singing is the kind of most honest representation of what you can hear in your head and then how you can kind of reproduce that. So anything that you can do to reinforce that connection will set you up for success across all areas of your musical life, from playing in tune in an ensemble to acing exams, to improvising, composing, arranging, transcribing, and as a teacher, obviously, in an instrumental setting, error detection in the classroom, identifying when students are playing something different to what is notated on the page. So we have a limited amount of time today, so we're going to touch base on a few key areas of the exam. The first being free response 1 and 2, melodic dictation. And there are a few things that we'd like to focus on here. A number of steps, and we'll probably, some of the steps we'll be looking at here will take a fairly kind of traditional approach. There are, of course, many different kinds of approaches and ways that you can tackle these types of questions. So first of all, it's really important to look at the information that is provided in the question setup before you even listen to anything. This can really help to inform how you approach the question. So let me just scroll over here to our next little question preview here. So you can see here, first of all, we are given a key signature of 2 sharps and a starting note of B. So as we know in the AP Music Theory exam, the melodies for free response 1 and 2 will start and finish on the tonic. So this immediately tells us that we are in the key of B minor. So this is great. It means that we can prepare ourselves kind of for that minor tonality, and also prepare ourselves for the fact that, again, skills you would have worked on during the course of the year, the fact that scale degree 7 will most likely be raised at some point in the melody, and scale degree 6 may also be raised. So in the key of B minor, this means scale degree 7 being raised would become A sharp, and the raised scale degree 6, G, would become G sharp. So just preparing ourselves with that knowledge can help inform some of the decisions we make as we tackle the question itself. Okay, so we won't have a listen just yet. We'll just move on to step 2, and then we'll have a bit of a listen and kind of map out some of the key distinguishing features of the melody. As per our little discussion about the importance of singing, really fundamental to the process of melodic dictation is listening, memorizing, and internalizing the melody. If you can really internalize it, memorize it, and then be able to recall it, you have kind of like this, this saved little record of the melody that you can draw upon in the exam when there's perhaps working time, or perhaps when replays have even run out in the exam itself. So super useful. Obviously, being able to find the tonic is super essential. All the other scale degrees will kind of, rotate around that and be kind of pulled back to that home base. So finding that and being able to imitate the melody will obviously ensure that you are properly internalizing it. The other things we're going to do, look for those key distinguishing features of the melody, listening out for the raised scale degree 6 and 7. Are there any chromatic pitches? And also have a rough idea of the contour of the melody, and also the rough mix of stepwise movement versus thirds or larger kind of leaps. In regards to chromatic pitches, we, as we know in the AP curriculum, you are very likely to get a raised scale degree 4 in the melody. This is not guaranteed, but it has happened over the last 10 years. I think it has happened in one of the melodies every year, apart from I think 2015. So it's quite common to the exam. So preparing yourself for that as a special colour note is a good one to listen out for. Okay, so let's have a first listen here and see if we can kind of orientate ourselves to the melody, find the tonic, and then listen out for some of those key elements, key distinguishing features. Okay, so hopefully everyone is able to hear that playback. So a couple of things to note with this melody. First of all, just thinking generally about the contour and shape of the melody. So you would have heard, starting from the B, it kind of ascends up here, reaches its peak somewhere around the top, around the start of the third bar here, and then descends again, and then will finish on the tonic again at the end here. One other thing that you'll notice, or will have noticed, hopefully noticed, is that a lot of the movement was quite stepwise. There were a few little leaps, but it was quite stepwise. Let's have one more listen just to reinforce that. All right. So you will have heard quite stepwise through here. And then towards the end of bar 2, again, just thinking about distinguishing features of the melody, you will have heard there were some slightly more colorful notes. So in here is like a little chromatic note was introduced, and then scale degrees 6 and 7 are also kind of introduced in here. And ma, so that's our tonic ma, and we can hear that kind of stepwise movement up to the tonic is going raise 6, raise 7th, and then to the tonic. So I think it's really useful to take a snapshot of the melody like that, kind of a broad overview of its shape and key kind of features in an early listening, melodic dictation question. So traditionally, lots of people like to take this approach with melodic dictation of then the next step being notating the rhythm first. There are many different kind of systems that people use or shorthands for doing this sort of thing. The one that the image that you can see there on screen does not represent the melody that we've just listened to. It is just one example of a system that someone might use. And you can see here they've essentially used these little dots to illustrate all the main beats that are in each bar. And then the items that they've put above the slashes and the circles represent note values and things like that. So whatever system you are using in your classroom as a teacher or a student, get really, really fluent with that so that you can use that and really quickly and easily, notate things in that sort of shorthand. Okay, next up. Traditionally, step 4, you start to add your pitches. Again, there are different systems that people use here, whether it be using solfege syllables, scale degrees, things like that. Again, whatever system you are used to using, get really, really fluent with that, and then get used to translating that into notation on the staff. Yeah, really important to kind of make those links and get that happening and really fluent in your work. Okay, so what I'll do now is we're actually going to jump into Aurelia and have a look at what that might look like and get Aurelia to automatically assess this for us. So let's play this back one more time, then I'll quickly notate the rhythm and then, and then we will input the pitches, get a few things incorrect, and let Aurelia kind of do the assessment work for us. Okay, let's have another little listen here. All right, so let's pop something in like this. We will get the rhythm roughly going here. Something along these lines. Oops. And let's have one more listen. All right, one last listen just to prove our work. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that rhythm. So now we can start to think about the pitches and inputting them. So as we identified earlier, a lot of the kind of melodic motion in this melody is quite stepwise. And you'll note here that we have this kind of, when I first started entering my rhythms, I did actually kind of roughly pop in a bit of a contour here. Now, second note here, the A, again, thinking about B minor and having a raised scale degree 7. So currently we just have a natural scale degree 7. So on playback, we'll hear that this is actually raised. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in there as an A sharp. And sorry, just switching note values here. And again, following our kind of contour map that we kind of visualized earlier, we can think a bit more about this contour here. And let's have another little listen here. So again, as I alluded to earlier, towards the end of the second bar here and into the third bar, this is where some of the kind of the colorful notes are actually implemented. And as we mentioned, using that kind of raised scale degree 4 or phi is super common in the exam. So let's have a little listen out for that here. All right, so that scale degree there after the F sharp is in fact our raised scale degree 4. So listening out for that and hearing that kind of being used there as a chromatic neighbor to the F sharp is a really important thing to listen out for. Again, hopefully you've done lots of foundational building skills so that you can identify those sorts of colors when they come up in a melody. And next, let's pop in our little reference to the melodic minor scale here, ascending up scale degree 5, raise 6, raise 7. And let's just finish this off. Again, we would have heard the contour has that descending flow to it towards the end. Let's have one final listen here. All right, so very much a descending stepwise kind of line here. And let's just get a few little things incorrect here, just so we can see what Aurelia does with this. Okay, let's submit this and get some nice feedback. So now we can see quite clearly where things didn't quite go to plan. And of course, we can play back our answer and the correct answer to orally and visually compare the two. So this can be great for, digging a little deeper into figuring out where things didn't quite go as planned. Let's have one final listen. All right, excellent. Now, really quickly, not to bore you with the statistics, but just so you're aware, over the last 10 years, this has kind of been, this has been the kind of the intervallic structure makeup of all the melodies. So the blue represents, almost 3/4 of the melodic material, lots of stepwise motion. So being able to, listen out for that and use that as a strategy can really help you out in the exam. Use this kind of information to kind of inform some of your decision making if your ears perhaps are struggling with certain kinds of concepts. Okay, we are fast running out of time, so we won't linger on this too much. Really quickly, a couple of other strategies people take to melodic dictation, starting with a melodic contour map, thinking about the shape and then kind of filling in the gaps, or potentially starting by trying to notate both the rhythm and the pitch at the start of the melody, then at the end of the melody, and then start to kind of fill in the middle sections from there. So whatever you've been working on with your students or as a student, run with that. Secret tip number 2, more singing. Okay, let's jump. We might skip over a couple of things here. I might actually move to some of the 4-part writing. Let's jump to FR6 here. All right, so again, this is from the 2023 exam. So some super common strategies here, which you will find in lots and lots of books and reference videos, especially related to AP Music Theory, is to kind of map out your chord vocabulary before you start filling in pitches here. And this might look a little something like, let me see. This is kind of a fancy representation of what it might look like, a kind of matrix like this. But in the real world, what we might do is sketch out something like this really quickly as part of this process. So you can see here, I have my key and the chords listed along the bottom here. And then I've gone through and written the pitch names of each of the pitches for each chord. So you can see we've got them all kind of stacked vertically. Then the next step is to go through and, in this case, I've put a square around each of the notes that will appear in the bass. So you can see we go from A to G sharp, A, C sharp, etc., etc. Now, the other thing that's really important in 4-part writing is to identify your tendency tones. If you can take care of these effectively, that will put you in a really good place for avoiding lots of other part writing rules. Prior to that, obviously, this kind of chord spelling process is also fundamental to success in this question type in the AP Music Theory exam. The assessment is brutal if you make any spelling errors. As I'm sure you know, if you misspell a chord, then you lose voice leading marks in and out of that chord. So, lots of points can be gained by purely taking care of the chord spelling. So, thinking back again to our tendency tones here, you'll note here that I have drawn little arrows here. Again, a really common kind of strategy. So from our leading tone in the key of A, G sharp is our leading tone, and I've drawn a line from our leading tone back to our tonic. So most commonly, the leading tone will want to resolve up to the tonic, and our chordal sevenths will almost always want to resolve down by step. So being aware of that and mapping them out in this kind of format can be really useful for students. Now, you'll see here, I've also done a similar thing here. I have identified that G is our chordal seventh, and we'll talk a bit more about this chord in one moment, but that is descending to F sharp. And we could have also done a similar thing on our G sharp here, descending to the A. So yeah, lots of useful things there that can hopefully just help you set you up for, good, solid voice leading principles. Let's talk really quickly just about our chromatic chord here, our applied 5-6-5 of 4. So hopefully you've done lots of work on this during the year, but super quick recap, we want to look at our target chord, which is the 4 chord, and then work our way backwards from there to figure out the pitches that are on this chord. So in the key of A major, we can count up to the 4th scale degree. So A, B, C, D. So that's just raw pitches, ignoring any accidentals. So that's the chord built on scale degree 4 is built off D, F sharp, and A. And then what we're looking to figure out is what is the dominant, what is the 5 chord of D. Okay, so again, we can go from D and count up to the 5th degree from D. Again, ignoring accidentals, we can just go D, E, F, G, A. So A is the 5 of D. So this chord is going to be based on a root of A, and we can work diatonically up the chord, A, C sharp, G, and then the only chromatic note here is in fact our G natural. So normally in the key of A major, we would have a G sharp, but in this case, we have a dominant 7th chord, so our G natural here. So using all this information, and we can reference this at any time, let's jump back in and make a few choices here about how we're going to input our answer. So common strategy is to start with the bass part. We already mapped this out on our little matrix. So we know that our pathway here is going from A to G sharp, back to A, up to C sharp, D, E, and then down to A to finish off. Now, really common strategy again is to then jump to the soprano part. And as we all know, one of the best ways to avoid part writing errors like parallel fifths, parallel octaves, items like that, is to, where possible, have the soprano move in contrary motion to the bass part, so moving in the opposite direction to the bass part. So where the bass part's ascending here, we will try to ascend and vice versa. So let's follow that little procedure here. And again, as part of this process, you would typically refer back to your kind of little matrix outlining the chords and the notes that you had specified per chord here. So I'm going to follow this pathway here, again, moving in contrary motion. I know we have our G natural that needs to be included as part of this chord. And then let's just keep kind of stepping down here. And then we will stay on the E there for those last 2 chords. Now, I might jump to the alto part now. And again, the poor alto part is often one of the less melodic parts, voices, sadly. So it often gets to stay on the same note. And in this case, we might do exactly that. If a note is common to all the chords, it is a great strategy to retain that pitch through each of the chords. All right, so I will keep moving down here. We might get we might try and force a few little errors here just so we can look at the assessment and then fix that. And finally, we'll pop in our tenor voice. And again, we are fast running out of time here, so I will quickly pop a few items in here. Let's go down to the A. Stay on the A, and again, let's force a few errors here to see what happens. Now, a radio musician in this mode will let us check our answer, and we get some really nice annotated feedback here that helps us to identify where I have omitted notes or where parallel octaves and fifths have occurred. I can select these in the list here, and then they are highlighted or soloed on the notation. So really easy to identify errors and then come back, edit my answer, excuse me, and then hopefully fix those. So let's go back here and let's see if we can resolve those issues. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, fix my spelling on this chord. And I might do that by going down to perhaps a B here. And then I'll swap that voice over there. And then in the case of the tenor voice, we might actually go back to the D. Actually, let's not do that. Let's go there, and then the G sharp. And finally finish on the E here. All right, let's check our answer, see if we have managed to do any better. All right, so we still have one little chord spelling error here that we can see that we need to resolve. Let's go back, edit our answer. And fix that up to B and A. Check our answer one more time. And voila. Beautiful. We have managed to get that all correct. And we can play that back as well if we need. All right. So we are just about out of time here now. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I'm not sure if Rachel, if you're planning on jumping in here as well. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you for joining us. Best of luck with your AP Music Theory exam. Hopefully some of this was of use to you today. I'm sure Rachel will maybe pop a link into the comments.
Yeah, so thank you, Tim. This was wonderful. It's been a long time since I've had to do this, and it's bringing back some memories for me. If you are a teacher and you attended the webinar tonight and would like a trial of Aurelia or Musician, you can visit musicfirst.com/AP. And if you are a student and looking to use this at home, you can visit risingsoftware.com. A couple of, just to recap what we talked about tonight, these sort of too long didn't read. Number one is make sure that you read the questions carefully. It's going to inform how you answer them. Number two is when you hear a melody, listen, memorize, and internalize that melody. Be able to sing it back to yourself in your head. Three is when you're notating, do the rhythms first in whatever method that you have learned to do them. And get comfortable with creating a melodic contour map. This is going to help you sort of visualize what that melody line is going to look like. The fifth is notate the beginning of a melodic line first and then the end, and then you can fill in the rest from there. Remember that it starts and ends on the tonic. When you're writing chords, check your spelling and pay attention to tendency tones. And last, when you are doing 4-part writing, remember bass first, then soprano, and contrary motion.
Golden rules.
Did I get it right?
You nailed it.
All right. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to drop those links down in the description box. Hope you have a great rest of your school year and very best of luck on your exams.
Absolutely. Good luck.